Year for Joe Burrow. A severe turf toe injury required surgery, kept the star quarterback sidelined for 9 games, and last week, an embarrassing blowout loss to the division rival in the Ravens knocked Burrow and the Bengals out of playoff contention for now the 3rd consecutive season. Burrow's recent comments and play has really raised some eyebrows about his commitment, and yesterday he answered more questions about his future in Cincy.
Is there any world in your mind where you're not the quarterback of the Bengals next year?
I can't see that, no.
Have you ever thought about the possibility of not being the quarterback here during your career, or?
You think about a lot of things.
Okay, think about a lot of things. So should we be thinking about a way maybe Joe Burrow should find his way out of Cincinnati?
I think so, and I think the way that he has managed and communicated with the media is him making it very clear. Hey, this is not going to continue to be this way. Not with me as your quarterback. Like, losing stinks. Like, when you are a high-level competitor and you go from basically winning all the time in your life, which Joe Burrow did, to now losing all the time, it wears on you. I don't care how much money you make. I'm not minimizing, in the grand scheme of things, how amazing his life is when it comes to that element. But a lot of those guys don't play for just that. That's the benefit of it. And I think what you're seeing is the beating that he's taking and the losing wearing on him. And I think he's using the media. He's not dumb. He's a highly intelligent person to continue to sit there and say, it's going to change. If I'm here, this is going to be different. And if I'm not here, or if you are other teams, listen to me, I'm not happy. Come get me. Figure out a way. The reality is this. I think that there's a very little lack of hope in Cincinnati. If we look at why they are where they are, this team has not drafted, certainly at the top of the draft, difference makers. They've found some nice pieces in the 3rd or 4th round, but their 1st and 2nd round picks, and I'm leaving this year's draft class as undetermined, there just hasn't been really, outside of Jamar, like a real difference maker. And so if you're the quarterback, you're sitting there saying, all right, and for everyone who goes away, they paid your receivers, there's the best chance to win, all right? So, like, you're trying to win. Where can you point to and say, like, you know what, right now it's bad, but I've got this track record of us drafting difference makers early in rounds, and we can reboot this quickly. I think there's some decent cap space, but I think Joe Burrow's like, if I'm going to stay here, it ain't going to be like this.
I think what Joe Burrow feels is truly a lack of hope, but I don't believe he should force his way out because these people actually listen to him. Now, you may feel like they aren't good at their jobs because you aren't involved in who you draft and where you draft, but you were on First Take in New Orleans and you said, Jamar needs to be back, T needs to be back, Trey needs to be back, and they're all back. And so you actually have the cachet with how good you are, with how smart you are, to go sit with these executives, sit with that family, and say, this is what I need. Now, if they do every single thing you need and it's not good enough, you got to have some accountability for yourself, too.
Can I ask you a question, though, with that? Because I know that's been said a lot. Coming off of last season, when they, as an offense, were historically great and still didn't get in, what would have been the alternative for Joe?
Well, one, I think the alternative is when you have a quarterback that is that good, you might not necessarily need both of them. You need Jamar, right? We've seen him play well with Yoshivash. We've seen him use Gesicki in the past game. Like, there were other ways to go about this than paying 2 wide receivers that well, but I don't have an issue with it. I don't have an issue saying that they did that. My issue is if you're Joe Burrow, there has to be some level of accountability that these people are trying. You did get injured. A toe is a freak thing. People get sacked. People get hit. And so I understand there's a level
to this type of quarterback at this age. If I'm Joe and getting back to the Super Bowl matters great to me, and we can try to read into his statements. We truly don't know his timeline and how he feels. But if it matters to them, I need to see some improvement on this defense next year. It's not going to be a top 10 defense.
Agree with that.
And we don't talk about this front office and criticize them the way we should because we just write off, it's the Bengals. They do things a different way. They're cheap. We should be criticizing them and holding their feet to the fire. If this was a bigger market team, people would be calling for wide-scale change in the front office. That's where I see the biggest flaws on this team. And frankly, Joe Burrow should be calling for that.
But that, like, from Joe's perspective, because I know I agree. Cincinnati, of course, he's one of the 5 best players in the league, certainly a top 3 quarterback. From Joe's perspective, like, what gives you the willingness or the want to, or like, I'll hang on for next year? Because then that's another year. You know, I want to see improvement. Is that going to be enough? What about Jamar?
The resistance, because what it would take for him to force his way out would be unlike anything we've seen.
Sure.
I mean, this is not Aaron Rodgers trying to get out of Green Bay or Russell Wilson trying to get Seattle. This would be massive, controversial. He would take so much heat. The city would be so angry.
Yeah.
So it's not simple for him to get out.
Joe Burrow should give less than a damn about how the city feels. The city has tolerated Mike Brown all of these years. That's an owner that should be ran out of town with the job that he's done over the years. I will remind y'all that Carson Palmer wanted and was going to retire rather than play for the Cincinnati Bengals. I also have to pay attention to the fact that you went to the playoffs 7 straight years with Marvin Lewis, like 5, I think it was like 7 straight years with Marvin Lewis at your quarterback. 5 straight years, Andy Dalton was your quarterback.
Yeah.
You're Joe Burrow. What we are not paying attention to, as far as I'm concerned, forget the back-to-back years. That's a given, where he didn't miss a game, and they probably actually missed 1 game. I think it was 16. Yeah, he didn't miss a game. And they went to the AFC, back-to-back AFC championship games and a Super Bowl, right? But fast forward to last year. Last year, he threw for nearly 5,000 yards.
Right.
Last year, he completed 70% of his passes. He threw 43 touchdowns and like just 7 or 9 interceptions. And they still missed the playoffs. So when are we going to talk about management? When are we going to talk about Zach Taylor? How many times have you seen me say on this show, when are we going to investigate that man and what they've been doing at start in the offseason? Because they're never ready to play at the start of September. This year was different. And it was the lone year, other than 1 year they went to the AFC Championship game, where they came. The first 2 games of the season, that's 12 games. The man was 1-11. How are you consistently not having your team ready? Why do I bring that up? Because what can get exhausting is when, like, we can use television here. Yeah. Stephen A., first take. Damn it, this girl's a hell of a host. And damn it, y'all are hell of experts on the NFL. Damn it, without y'all, I can't do it. Can't do it. Imagine if somebody got to come to work every day, and if you pass gas, y'all gonna fail. It's like, damn. It's like, damn. So you're Joe Burrow, right? That's a lot.
But in that, guess what you are here? You're Joe Burrow. You're the Joe Burrow of First Take. Because Shay doesn't get to host First Take if they don't come to you first. If that's not something you're comfortable with. Now, as good as she is at it, all the executives could have wanted her to do it, the producers. If they'd came to you and you'd have been like, nah, like, I don't really vibe with her, she wouldn't be the host. If Mina didn't contribute the way she did, Dan, myself, we wouldn't get to sit here. Joe Burrow has an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, but what
and if they are inept at their jobs, I agree with Mina, then you go through the year and you do something different.
But I want to go where Dan went, because what I'm saying to you, to use your example, if I'm upstairs and it's a bunch of bosses that don't listen, and the ratings are nosediving, oh, we got a problem. Because you're not listening. No, here's what I'm saying. Because I'm looking at it from the standpoint, yeah, those 3 dudes, we're thinking they listened to everything you said because of what he came on First Take last year and said about Jace, Higgins, Hendrickson, right? That's what we're looking at. There's a lot more that goes into a football operation.
Correct.
And there's a lot more than he's seeing. We don't know if he's getting everything he asked for. We don't know if he's getting everything he wants. The Mike Brown in his history, it does prove that, guess what? They do things their way and they don't give a damn about the results most of the time because of their level of ineptitude that is perpetual. You got to remember that, and you got to look at a Joe Burrow and say, damn, that's a lot.
They almost didn't sign Trey Hendrickson. I mean, he didn't get signed in like 2 days, I think it was, before the start of the season. They almost didn't even get that done.
The defense isn't bad because they're cheap. It's bad because they've drafted and developed
and not developed players.
Right.
That's why,
look at
once
Shamar
again,
Stewart.
I just turn my eye to the front office. That's what we're talking about. Change on the
But it's not just the front office. What about Zach Taylor putting Joe Burrow in a position where you're not protecting him enough because you got to constantly you pointed that out.
I've been critical
You haven't protected him well enough.
I've been critical of the scheme not being necessarily the best thing when it comes to protection of the quarterback.
Okay.
The scheme also took him to the Super Bowl in part, and the scheme also scores 40 a game almost.
But we're talking about him getting injured.
I'm with you, but Zach Taylor's proven he can coach. Like, he's proven he can coach and score points. I think from Joe's perspective, and this is why I sit there and say, like, I think the wanting out of Cincinnati is a real thing, or at least the thought in Joe's mind is, he can sit back and listen to the names that we have all correlated the situation to and ask himself, like, who do I want to end up being? Andrew Luck, who was a superstar, took all those hits and got hit to a point. Now, Andrew also had a lot in his life outside of football. Got to a point, he's like, I don't want to do football anymore.
Right.
This isn't fun anymore, which we've heard Joe say. Or does he look out west and look another ridiculously talented quarterback and say,
Matthew Stafford.
Stafford was a baller.
They're so different.
I understand they're different, Mina.
Andrew
But
likes
Mina,
situations about injuries.
But Mina, here's my point.
We can't protect him from that.
But here's my point, though. Stafford played at an unbelievable high level for a better part of a decade, but wasn't really talked about and didn't win because of where he was. Finally gets out from where he is, and all of a sudden now is Matthew Stafford's the best quarterback in football. He's going to be Hall of Famer. He's training for a Super Bowl every year because he's at a different place.
But also, too, though, like for Joe, it started way different than it started for Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford was this dude we looked at as like when you play the Detroit Lions, you got to prepare for him. There's Calvin Johnson out there. He can make all the throws, but we're going to beat him every single time. Sure. It wasn't that with Joe Burrow. The reason Joe Burrow is talked about the way that he's spoken about is because they won. It's because at one point we were saying it's not Josh, it's not Lamar. The quarterback you have to worry about in the AFC winning big games is Joe Burrow. And that's because the Cincinnati Bengals were in place to win them. The difference is this. When they were winning, Joe was young, he wasn't paid. Jamar was young, he wasn't paid. And Lou Anarumo was coaching his tail off defensively. And those dudes were making plays.
But I'm with you, RC. I'm with you. But if you're Joe, you're sitting there going, man, Patrick's on this ridiculous run. And we all, rightfully so, praise that organization. And then Lamar, 2 MVPs, like one of the great quarterbacks we've seen over time. We all praise that organization. And the same with Buffalo and Josh Allen.
So where's the place? Where does he force himself to where they win?
I think there's 15 places that, take all my first-round picks, take the quarterback, go. I'll take Joe. I think there's a lot of places.
Those are places that would want him, but not necessarily would set him up for success.
So
the way that
like,
Matthew Stafford
Minnesota?
would be in
Everybody.
maybe Minnesota. LA. Well, if you're saying Matthew Stafford
Which
retires.
one? Matthew Stafford retires?
Yeah.
Okay, that I could buy.
I agree with everything everybody's saying. All I'm going to say is this. Zach Taylor, first 2 years before Joe Burrow arrived, was 2-14 and 4-11. You know, you talking to me about what Zach Taylor could do. I'm looking at you and I'm saying, listen, I'm looking at you and I'm saying, all right, the Zach Taylor without Joe Burrow. You know, we just going to ignore all of that. I mean,
all great coaches.
You are the head coach. You are the head coach. We can look at you and say there are other components. There are other things going on the football field that you do have some dominion over. What about how those people perform?
To your point, we just talk about Zach Taylor like he's only responsible for the offense.
Yes.
He's the head coach.
He's
of the